welcome to George on Cars. Today, I've got an amazing video. I'm going to show you 5 easy and simple steps to super clean your car's engine bay. But before I get to the video, let me tell you a little bit about this month's charity of the month. And by the way, if there's any content you want to see on the channel, send me an email at georgeoncars@gmail.com. This month's charity of the month is the Canadian National Institute for the Blind, better known as the CNIB. Now, the CNIB is a non-profit organization that delivers innovative programs that empower people impacted by blindness to live their dreams and tear down barriers to inclusion. They're a great organization, so check out their website, which has some amazing information. You can even volunteer your time or make a small donation if you like. Thanks a lot for supporting this great charity, and I hope you enjoy the video. Now, before we get started, here are some items that you'll need to do your engine detail and a few tips. When I clean an engine bay, I like to make sure that I have aluminum foil, garbage bags, super clean degreaser, a variety of brushes, a leaf blower, dressing for the plastic and rubber components, and towels and rubber gloves. And some things that you'll want to remember before you start are: don't work in direct sunlight. You don't want your cleaning product drying on your engine area. Secondly, you might not want to do this in your driveway, as a lot of grease and debris is going to end up on the ground, and that could stain your cement. Also, you can work on a slightly warm engine, but I don't recommend that you work on a hot one. And as a matter of fact, I like to work on a cold engine because the super clean degreaser that I use works better with cold water. When rinsing the engine down, it's important that you don't use a lot of water, and I can't stress this enough. It's okay to get the engine a bit wet, but you don't want to go crazy and soak it. And finally, don't use a high pressure water to rinse the engine off. And that's it, so let's get started. So step 1 is make sure that all the fluid caps and oil dipsticks are closed tight, and remove any loose dirt and debris from the engine bay. At this point in the process, you want to make sure that the oil cap, brake fluid reservoir, power steering reservoir, transmission and oil dipsticks, and all the other caps are closed tight so that you don't get any degreaser or water into those areas. Once that's done, I remove any large pieces of debris by hand and then use a brush like this one to work any dirt and dust loose. Once I've brushed the entire engine bay down, I use a leaf blower and blow off all the debris that I just loosened up. Make sure that you get into all the tight areas, and especially into any of those areas that you'll be covering up with aluminum foil a little bit later that you don't want to get wet. Now, some people also disconnect the battery to prevent a short circuit, but as long as you don't soak the engine bay too much with water, that really shouldn't be a problem. Step 2 is cover the delicate engine components and wash the underside of the hood. Some of the things that you're going to want to cover and not get wet include your alternator, your mass airflow sensor, any electrical connectors, and your cold air intake if you have one. I like to use aluminum foil to cover these items because plastic bags can move around and they can get pushed off the component that you're trying to protect. Before you start working on the hood, cover the entire engine bay with some plastic so that you don't get water on it unnecessarily. I like to use a large garbage bag that I've cut in half. Now, once your entire engine and electrical components are covered, spray the top of the hood area very generously with the super clean degreaser and let it sit for a few minutes, and then work it in with a brush. I don't treat the fabric headliner or heat shield in the hood, as getting that wet can be problematic and it could cause it to sag. Once you're done working the super clean on the metal area part of the hood, rinse the hood down and you're all set. Step 3 is clean the engine bay. At this point, apply the super clean degreaser very liberally in the engine bay and let it sit for a few minutes. I make sure that I use a lot of degreaser, and I try to clean smaller sections of the engine at a time. Now, it helps to have a variety of brushes to make sure that you scrub the entire area very well and get into the corners and hard to reach spots. In addition to applying the super clean to the engine bay, I also like to apply some to my brushes and make sure that I'm really penetrating into each area. Once you've scrubbed down the section you're working on, rinse it off, making sure to remove all the degreaser, but be careful not to go too crazy with the amount of water you use. Also, be careful rinsing anything electrical or delicate. You just need to get the loose dirt off, and you don't want to apply a lot of water or high pressure rinse. Now, that being said, I'm going to be using a pressure washer, but I am using a very wide angle on the nozzle, and I'm making sure that I keep the tip very far away from the engine. The reason I'm using a pressure washer is I'm actually putting less water in the engine bay than if I was just using a traditional hose attachment. And if you keep the nozzle further away from the engine components, you really shouldn't have a problem using this process. Step 4 is dry the engine. At this point, I remove all the aluminum foil that I use to protect the electrical components, and then I dry the engine using this leaf blower. You want to make sure that you get into all the corners and hard to reach areas, and then wipe down any large areas like the plastic engine cover with a towel. Once that's done, I start the car and let it run for a few minutes to burn off any excess water. Now the fifth and final step is detailing the engine bay. This step is completely optional, but applying a non-flammable dressing to the engine cover and rubber and plastic components can really make your engine bay pop and look great. If you do this step though, just make sure that you use a non-flammable dressing and don't spray any drive or serpentine belts or any electrical components. Well, that's it. That's a simple 5-step process to super clean your vehicle engine bay. Thanks for watching the video, and if you enjoyed it, hit like and subscribe, and more importantly, support the charity of the month if you can. Thanks a lot, and we'll see you in the next video.